I don't think social media would have existed. Like, not as if it wouldn't have existed, but he's one of those people I went to say, this is what I want to do. It's a crazy idea. Oh. But he was like, no, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. Go ahead, push for it. So today we have him here with us to answer questions and also give us clarity in major areas around branding, design, teamwork, and other things that we ask questions. So Satola, over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it. I hope you all can hear me clearly. Is it clear enough? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. It's good to have everyone here. Good to have you here, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. Dan, Joy, and Francesco or Francesco. How do you pronounce the name? Is Francesco on this call? I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing people's names right. What are the pronunciations, Elizabeth?
I think it's Joseph. Joseph, is that you? Like,
Okay, Joseph. I think Joseph is easier. All right, so it's good to have everyone here. All right, thanks for making out time. It's Saturday evening, so I'm just going to try to take maybe not more than an hour here, not more than, and so that we can have the rest of our evening together. But I'm honored that you guys will have me here to talk to you as a team. It's a very unusual thing. I think this is the second time ever I'm being invited to talk to a team. A lot of times I talk to communities, but to talk to a team, and what I mean by team is a group of people that work together. It's very rare, and I always wonder why it's so rare, because I think teams need this more than community. So it's an impressive thing to still have the team say, "Oh, come and talk to us," so that we can learn how to work together and work individually. So it's a great thing you're doing, Elizabeth and the rest of everyone. Okay, Emmanuel just joined. Thanks for taking our time to join us, Emmanuel. All right, so today I told Elizabeth that I'm not going to. I don't want to talk at you. And that's why I asked for you to send questions, because a lot of times I realize that the questions that people ask are more important than the things I think I want to tell them. The questions are the things. If I answer your questions, it's likely for those answers to stick longer than me just talking to you and thinking I know what your pain points are, what your challenges are. So today we're going to answer your questions that Elizabeth has sent to me, and there are quite a lot. So I think it take some of our time. It's going to take a lot of our time. So if all we do is answer the questions, I'll be very glad if you can answer the questions that you sent to me. I think there should be up to 20 questions. And so I would take I won't take my time to dwell on each question. So I'm going to be kind of, some of them will be touch and go, and some of them I might dwell on depending on how much I feel the question needs attention. But I want to thank you guys for sending very good questions. I was looking through the questions, just glancing. I didn't want to have any of them rehearsed so that I can be as real and as relatable as possible. But they're all very good questions. And I like when people ask good questions, because I realize good questions allow you, for me as a teacher, to think more. And so, from the questions that were asked, I realized that your team is actually a very intelligent team, because I have people ask me questions every day. I want one frustrating thing is that some people don't know how to ask good questions, but these questions are really good. So I know that you guys in this Goshen media must be a group of smart young people to ask these questions. And I really wish when I was younger, 44, I wish when I was in my 20s, I had people I could really ask questions, and I would have made less mistakes. So today I'm going to try to answer your questions so that you guys in your journey can make less mistakes, and have more clarity and do bigger and better things than I ever got to do, or I'm even ever getting to do. So let's go right into it. I don't know who asked the questions. I'm not going to answer the question based on the questions I've gotten. And so the first question I have here is, what advice would you give someone in the early stages of their career who wants to grow fast without burning out? That is the first question I have. What's my advice for somebody early stages of their career who wants to grow fast without burning out? I think my advice for anyone starting out, based on this question, is number one, don't desire to grow fast. Don't desire to grow fast. There is nothing like fast growth. You understand? Fast growth is not a good thing in any area of life. Fast growth is not a good thing. What you want is proper growth, not fast growth. And so, first thing you need to work on is that desire to grow fast. Never desire to grow fast. Desire to grow properly. That's the most important thing. Desire to grow properly, because growth is a process. And the thing about processes is things need to be done before the other part of the process can start. So when a process is not complete and you go on to the next process and that process is not complete, in the long run, what you're going to have is a calamity. You understand? So never desire fast growth. A lot of people say they are burning out because they desire things fast. And I'm a strong believer of anything being fast. Anything being fast is dangerous. You understand? Fast is dangerous. You must know that. So you want to grow properly. You understand? That way you should be more concerned about. So my biggest advice to anyone starting anything, the early stages, is be ready to go slow. You understand? Be ready to go slow. And what slow means is be ready to finish one part of the process before moving to another. If you go slow, you would realize that in the long run you would end up achieving more. You see, I have tortoises as pets. I have 3 tortoises as pets, and I've had them for a very long time now. And when I started having tortoises, I realized that they're very incredible animals. They are highly underrated for what they can achieve. Tortoises, they burrow. They are very strong. People don't know that tortoises are very strong and they are highly tenacious. Even though they are slow in movement, they achieve a lot just by staying somewhere and just continuing to do something. And so a tortoise can dig through a wall. You don't know, but they can dig through a wall. They are not weak animals at all. They might be slow, but they're not weak, but they are very intentional. They can dig through a brick wall. Just give them time. They'll stay there all day, digging. So I have a place where I put them, and there's a boulder there, a big boulder. And just some days ago, my daughter told me that they had moved the boulder. And like, how they move it? She said they just stayed there all day, just clawing at it, and they moved it. A big boulder that I found it hard to carry. So the truth of the matter is, don't ever see slow as weak. You understand? A lot of times when you take things slowly, you realize that what's building in you is a lot of muscle, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. So don't desire fast growth. I'll tell anybody starting out in the early stages, don't desire fast growth. Desire proper growth. Do things properly. And then you would realize that number one, you won't burn out. Number two, you will be prepared for whatever it is you want to go in. Second question here is, what habits/routine have contributed the most to your personal growth over the years? Over the years you have spent in this field. Now, I've spent over 2 decades now in the creative industry. I started out as a graphic designer, doing general graphics, and then I went into logo design, and now I do a lot of mentoring and teaching. And what one thing has allowed me to grow the most? It's funny because I did a podcast on this just this morning, and for those of you that are not familiar with my podcast, I have a podcast. I think Elizabeth will tell you more about it later on, but it's called TA Podcast, and I would advise any of you to listen to the podcast. It will really help you. The podcast is aimed at personal growth for people, whether financial, spiritual goals, or goals in your relationship. But I did a podcast today, touching on this question that this person is asking. What what contributed the most to my personal growth. You know, one that contributed the most to my personal growth is my courage to stop doing things. Now, people don't talk about this thing enough when it comes to growth. People talk about dedication, consistency, discipline, but people don't talk about the courage to stop doing something. And that's something I have been blessed with. I have the courage to stop and move on to the next thing. A lot of people find it hard to stop doing things. And that's why I say, when I started out, first of all, but to give my story, I studied architecture in Obafemi Awolowo University, and I worked as an architect for 1 year before I stopped. A lot of my mates couldn't stop, but I stopped immediately. I realized I'm not feeling that thing. When I realized that thing is not gelling with my inner man, I stop. Or I realized I've gotten to a place where I've gotten my satisfaction doing that thing. I move on to the next thing. And I do not look back a lot of times. A lot of people cannot do that. A lot of people think of time sunk. So they always think, man, I spent 4 years doing this thing. That's why a lot of people find it hard to detach from what they studied in school, even though they realize that their passion has changed or they found their passion. They'll say, I spent 5 years studying engineering. Would that just go to waste? I spent 7 years studying pharmacy or medicine. Would that just go to waste? So they feel they've sunk time in something, and then because of that, they do not want to move to where it is they feel led to move into. People do that in relationships too. Relationship is not working out, but they say, I've been dating this guy for the past 2 years. So what should I now do? I might as well just stay and get married to this person, even when you realize that's not the person for you anymore. So one core thing that has helped me is I know how to move on without any form of attachment. I just know that I'm done here, I'm going. So when I was doing graphic design, doing flyers, I started doing album cover designs a lot. I realized that I reached the end of my rope. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. Look for the next thing, I stopped doing that. I did web design, look for the next thing, stop doing that. So I found myself doing logo design. I did that for very long till I reached a place where it was diminishing returns. I wasn't enjoying the process anymore. I stopped doing that. And so your ability to stop doing something is very important. If you ever get to listen to the podcast, and I would advise every one of you, there are 2 things or 3 things I would advise you guys to do as we go through this question. And I've said one of it right now. I advise you guys to listen to the podcast. It's called the TA Podcast. It's on Spotify or any other podcast platform that you might know. And it's also on YouTube. Just look for the TA Podcast and you'll see my photo there. You see, it's called TA Podcast, and I'll advise you to listen to it. If you listen to it, that very one that I talk about, one thing hindering your growth this year, and I go into depth about how to stop doing something to move to the next thing. So this is one thing I'm going to attribute a lot of my personal growth to, is to be able to move from stage to stage without thinking I need to carry the previous stage with me. Third question here is, how do you deal with moments when you feel you're stuck or you aren't growing anymore? That's a very good question. How do you deal with moments when you feel you're stuck or aren't growing anymore? And this is one thing I want to tell us about growth. A lot of times our perception of growth is too one-sided. So there are times when I felt I'm stuck and I'm not growing anymore. But one thing I remind myself is that growth comes in 3 phases. There are 3 aspects to every human being. There's your mind, there's your body, and your spirit. Or you can call it your mind, your soul, spirit. Those are 3 things. And you realize that those 3 things are very important. A lot of times it's very hard to not be growing in at least one of them. And at the same time, it's very hard to have significant concurrent growth in 2 of them at the same time. But sometimes when we get disillusioned, we look at one area and we think, I'm not growing in this area, so my life is not moving forward. And because of that, we become blindsided to the other 2 areas. So sometimes when you're not growing spiritually, you just put yourself and I'm not growing. But you realize that when it comes body-wise, when I talk about body, a lot of body growth has to do with financial growth. You understand? Financial work growth. So you realize that some of you, there are times when you are really growing financially in your business, in your work, you're growing as a team in making money. But then with that, you might realize, I can do better as a spiritual person. I can do better in my faith. I've not gone to church in the last three months. I've not gone to church in the last 1 year. I've not gone in 2 years. I can do better. But don't beat yourself up that your life is not growing generally. That's too skewed. You understand? So when you talk about spiritual growth, a lot of it is your interaction with God, your knowledge of God, your search for God. You understand? Your understanding of God. A lot of times you find ourselves failing in that too. But don't beat yourself up because you're failing in one. Just know that you just need to improve on that one. But what gives you courage, encouragement a lot of times is when you look at other parts where you're going. So for me, then I see myself maybe having lagging in body growth. And body growth, I say a lot of times is financial growth. Why I call body growth financial growth is when we are trying to take care of ourselves. So when you think of, man, I'm not growing, I'll change my clothes in a while. I've not changed my wardrobe in a while. When I'm living, I'm still living in the same place, squatting with somebody. All these things have to do with bodies. They don't really have to do with spirit or mind. That's the truth. All those things are bodily things. They are thinking, man, I've not improved on these bodily things. And those things are good. I'm not discarding them by any means. They are very good. But then one thing you might tell yourself is, okay, I need to watch out on my body growth. And that might be my financial growth. But then let's look at my mind growth. Your mind growth, a lot of times, have to do with your relationships. Relationships are what form mind growth. So who are the people that you have in your life? What has the interaction been? Do you your quality of your friendship improved with one of your friends or most of your friends? Do you understand them better? Are you choosing good associations? You understand? Those are mind growth. You understand? Things you interact. So you can say, oh, from this relationship, from my work with in social media now, I have learned to be patient. I have learned to understand people. I might not be making money. I might not have changed. I might not have bought a car. I might not have a house. I might still be squatting. But I've learned to be a better person. I'm more patient. My English has improved. My ability to reason has improved. And those are mind growth. And that comes by constant interaction with people. Your spiritual growth too can grow. You can say, oh man, I think over the past few years, my relationship with God has improved. My understanding of God has improved. My ability to hear from God has improved. So what I do a lot of times is when I feel stuck, I try to think, in what area am I stuck? Is it all three areas, which is hardly ever the case? Is it in one area? And then I encourage myself and just say, okay, I might have dropped the ball in this area, but then there are two areas. I might have dropped the ball in two areas, but then there's this one area where I've really done well. And then I now realize that, okay, if I can do well in this area, I can also do well in this other area. So what I do is I realize that a lot of times when we feel stuck and we're not growing, we're only just looking at one part of our lives. You understand? One part. And because we're looking at one part, we tend to complain rather than to be grateful for the other parts. Like for me, the past few months, I was telling Elizabeth, it was very challenging for me when it came to financial growth. I was like, oh man, what's going on? I'm not making a lot of money. I'm not, you understand? But then I thank God because God opened my eyes. I'm like, mind-wise, I'm doing well. I started looking at my family. I'm like, my kids have good relationship with my kids. With my wife, we have a great relationship. Even though we desire for better finances, we don't fight every day like a family. We still get to eat together. We still get to watch TV together. So I was happy about that part of the growth. You understand? So whenever you feel stuck, it's a time for you to reassess other parts. You understand? And that's why sometimes when you feel stuck, you could call your sister, call your mom, call your dad, or call your friend. You understand? Those people make you know that there are other things in your life that you're actually making tremendous growth on. The fourth question here is how do you as a leader personally stay inspired and motivated, especially when you're somewhat responsible for leading others? So how do you stay inspired as a leader and motivated so that other people around you do not lose motivation? So this is a very interesting question. I think it's something a lot of people get confused about leadership. You see, a lot of leaders feel this, they have this superhero complex. It's a very toxic thing. It's not good. It's not a good thing. So a leader feels you should always be inspired, you should always be motivated, you should always be bingered. That's not good. It's not good at all. And I don't subscribe to that type of leadership. I subscribe to vulnerable leadership. And so for someone like Elizabeth that I've known me for a while, she knows, even the last time we chatted, I told her how I was feeling. I told her I was feeling down. I told her I was feeling in the dumps. Some people will not be able to be vulnerable with somebody that is their mentee. But I think it's very important. And that's why I tell people, never follow leaders that don't have scars. Leaders that have scars are the best leaders. Those are the ones that can empathize with you when you are going through your own pain. So if you don't have to always be inspired as a leader. You don't always have to be motivated. And the truth is, when as a leader you are vulnerable with times you are not inspired, you are not motivated, you allow your team to lift you up. And they feel empowered by lifting you up. They feel like they are part of your journey. They feel like you need them too. When a leader is too strong, there's a problem. And this is something I've learned even as a father in my home. I tell my children when I'm not feeling good. I tell my children when I'm feeling insecure. I tell my wife. Some guys can never tell their wives for the life of them that they don't have money. They would rather die. You understand? But that's a very weak mindset. As a leader, you must be vulnerable. You must be vulnerable. You must be able to cry in front of your team. There was a book I was reading by it's called Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. One of the best books I read last year. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And the story about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, one thing I respect about him is he had no qualms crying at meetings. He cries at meetings. You cry when things are not going well. So he wasn't always the confident, brash talking man that people paint him out to be. Many chapters there, they just say Steve broke out crying. You understand? And so and that made him a strong leader. That's why a lot of people were attached to him, because they saw him as the strongest and they saw him as his weakest. And even when he had some pancreatic cancer, we all saw him. We saw him lose weight. He didn't hide. You understand? He came out skinny. He came out skin and bones. You understand? And that's why people respect him so much. And so it's very important for a leader to be vulnerable. Don't always think it's you have to be motivated and you have to be the energy of the team. No. Sometimes you need energy from the team. Sometimes the energy can come from the intern in the company. And that makes the person more valued, feel more valued, feel like they're actually adding something to the team. The fifth question here is, how do you manage the mix of prioritizing deadlines without killing the creative spark of your team or overwhelming them? So how do you manage prioritizing deadlines without killing the creative spark of your team? Now, this is a good question. And this is one thing I try to tell people that are building teams or building companies. It's always important to build a company before you have clients. I'll say that again. Build a company before you have clients. Build a company while you are jobless, when you have no commission work. A lot of people build companies when they have projects. Never build companies when you have projects. Or else, this is what will happen. You would realize that you wouldn't understand the rhythm of your team. And it's very important to understand the rhythm of your team. The first project you should be working on as a team should never be a commission job. It should be a passion job. So I don't know how Goshen Media is working right now, but you guys should never wait for projects before you work. You should work before projects come, or else you'll be making mistakes on live projects, and that brings a lot of tension. And this is where this deadline, killing creative spark and stuff like that, overwhelming the team comes from, because you're working on live projects. Never work on live projects for the first time as a team. Never. So I have people that say, oh, I have this team of people, but we don't work together because no client has come. That's the best time to work together. You understand? It's just like, I don't know who plays football here. I know they play some football, but some of you understand something about football. Arsenal, Manchester United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, those guys, they do not, most of the games they play during the week is not against other teams. So on Monday, in the training facility, they play against each other. They play 6 aside, 5 aside, 3 aside. They play against each other. So that on Saturday, when they have to play in the league, play in the competition against someone else. They understand everybody's rhythm. It's not at that time that you realize that this guy cannot run for 90 minutes, or this guy needs to pass the ball to me it's not at that time. If you do it at that time, you'll fight on the field during the live game. You'll fight. You understand? There will be a breakup. So you must understand everybody's temperament when there isn't too much at risk. So what I'm trying to say right now is that as a team, you guys must work on personal projects as much as possible. Test personal projects. And that's when you begin to know the rhythm of your team. You will know what the deadline you should give it, especially for the leader. Whoever is interfacing with the clients. Now when the client say, I need this drug, I need it in 2 days, then you know, this is not for my team. My team is not gotten to that place where we can band together in 2 days and deliver something. We need 2 weeks. Then you already know that, not your client. But if for the first time, okay, let's say, need it in 2 days, never, we have this project, it's 2 days, then you guys start fighting. Before you know it, that's why companies break up. Because they work on live projects for the first time a lot of times. They don't understand each other's rhythm. They must understand each other's rhythm. You understand? So you can know, that doesn't work. Our illustrator needs like 5 days to illustrate well. Our web person needs like this. Our copywriter needs this much time to copy. So this client, even though they have free money, can't work with the team, or else I'll be putting too much pressure on this member of the team. So you must understand each other. That's how to do a lot of passion projects over commissioned work. People that do more passion projects than commission work, when commission work comes, they knock it out of the park. They over deliver because they understand each other too well. You understand? So that's where that's how you can overcome overwhelm within an organization or a company.